The eerie encounter I went through took place during the summer night of 2007 when I was still in high school, together with my close friends. That night, my two friends and I were hanging out until late, eventually wandering off to a deserted playground past 11 p.m. Two of us sat on the swings and continued our conversation, mostly about making fun of each other. Meanwhile, another friend was playing around with his camcorder, filming various scenes. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a little kid appeared and began to approach us. I wondered why a little child was wandering around at such a late hour. He seemed to be only 6 or 7 years old. It was strange enough for a child to come to the playground alone in the middle of the night, but what was even stranger was the child's appearance. It was too shabby. He was wearing a very worn-out white t-shirt that hung down to his knees, as if he were wearing his dad's clothes. The little boy approached and stood in front of the swing we were on. Wondering if he wanted to ride the swing, I stood up and stepped aside. However, he just stood there quietly. "Don't you want to ride the swing?" I asked. At that moment, I noticed something hanging around his neck, but it wasn't a necklace or a toy. Strangely, it was a small picture frame. Upon closer look, it was an ordinary family photo of a dad, mom, and the boy himself. Strange. Is this another way of identifying a child if he gets lost? I wondered momentarily, but my concern shifted to the boy being alone at such a late hour. "Why are you alone at this hour? Where are your mom and dad?" However, he remained silent, only gazing at the bag of chips I was eating. "Would you like some chips?" I offered some to the boy. "Take it." After taking some of the chips, he went over to a corner and sat quietly, eating away. As our conversation carried on, time slipped away unnoticed. Eventually, we decided it was time to head back, only to discover the boy still lingering nearby. "Why are you still here? Where do you live? Is it far? Should we take you home?" we asked.
"There is a ghost in our house,"
the boy replied. The sudden mention of a ghost by this innocent boy caught us off guard and made us nervous. However, as teenagers, pride governed our actions. We reassured the little boy. "Don't worry. We'll protect you from the ghost." We said it with a boast. "It's dangerous at night, so let's go together." Ultimately, we decided to escort the little boy home, and so we set off together along the child's familiar path. As we walked, it seemed like we were the only ones around. I found it intriguing to observe a little child confidently leading the way in silence. Lost in my thoughts, I suddenly noticed what appeared to be a shadowy figure. Startled, I glanced around, only to find my friend pointing to darkened corner and urging me to look. After I shifted my gaze towards where my friend was pointing, my friend asked,
"Do you see that?"
"What's that?" It looked like a figure of a man, but his arms and legs were twisted as if broken. I was startled and couldn't help but stare. One of us suggested reviewing the camcorder footage to see if we captured anything. But as we examined the recordings, the child vanished. Where did he go? In confusion, as I looked around, I saw the kid standing still, gazing at the alley where that strange figure had disappeared into. After a brief moment, the little boy started walking down the dimly lit alley without saying a word. What's going on? With a growing sense of unease, we followed behind the kid. Finally, after a while, the kid's footsteps abruptly stopped in front of a house.
"This is our house,"
the little boy said. Chills ran down my spine at his words. The boy standing in front of this house, claiming it to be his, yet it was clearly abandoned by any standards. The gate stood slightly ajar, offering a glimpse inside where no signs of habitation or human activity were visible. We paused, hesitant to go inside, until one of our fearless friends boldly took the first step, urging us to follow suit. "Anybody home?" I waited for the boy to go in, but he remained standing outside behind the gate. "Why aren't you going in? Isn't this your house?"
"I'm scared. There might be ghosts waiting in the house."
"It's okay. We'll take you to your mom and dad. Let's go in together." Eventually, when we entered the house, it was worse than what we saw from outside. There was no light coming in, things were broken everywhere, and the floor was covered with dirt. Are you sure this is your house? There is no way people can live in this place. However, at that moment, one of my friends, while looking around the living room, called me with a trembling voice.
Hey, there's something strange here.
I hurried over. Frames were hung on the wall, but they were all turned over or covered so the pictures weren't visible. Suddenly, I remembered the family photo the boy had hung around his neck earlier. I cautiously flipped over one of the frames. In the picture, only the bright smiling face of the kid who we just followed was visible, and nothing seemed odd. Feeling a bit reassured that this might indeed be his house, I began to flip through the other frames one by one. But where did everyone go? There was no one beside me. Suddenly, the realization of being alone filled me with fear. Just as I was debating whether to leave this place, I heard the boy calling out. I searched every nook and cranny of the house, but neither my friend nor the child was anywhere to be found. Eventually, I stumbled upon a closed door. As I pushed it open, a thick haze blocked my view. As I waved my hand to clear the dense haze, I saw someone lying on the bed fully covered under a blanket as if hiding. Could it be the child? Hey, is that you? However, when I glanced at the feet, they were too large to belong to a child. Thinking it was one of my friends playing a prank, I quickly pulled the blanket. To my horror, I discovered a man lying there, his face disfigured as if badly burnt. Startled, I took a step back and bumped into something. Turning around, I saw a woman standing there. Her face was also burned and disfigured. She seemed to be trying to say something to me, but all I heard was a painful, agonizing moan. I rushed out of the room without looking back. Just then, my friend called out to me, urgent and fearful.
Quick, come over here. That little boy was right. There's a real ghost here.
My friends, whom I had been looking for, were all standing in one corner of the room, their faces pale with fear. And as if they couldn't believe it, they were staring at something. What's wrong?
We need to get out of here quickly.
My friend showed me one of the photos. Upon closer inspection, it was a perfectly normal photo, not smudged or dusty, but wait a minute. The year written on the photo was 1998. This meant the picture was taken 9 years ago. What was astonishing was that the face of the little child in the photo looked exactly the same as the little child we followed to this house, with no signs of aging. At that moment, the boy walked into the room. Startled once again, one of my friends asked,
Guys, did you happen to see his shadows on the way here? How about now?
See? I told you there was a ghost in this house.
Without a word, we all turned and ran out without looking back. The next day, the three of us decided to go back to that house in broad daylight. However, hey guys, are we at the right place? The abandoned house we visited last night was nowhere to be found. It had vanished without a trace. The house wasn't there anymore, just like that. It was baffling beyond comprehension. It felt like we were all possessed by something. Who was that little kid carrying his family photo frame hanging around his neck, and where did he go? Even to this day, it sends shivers down my spine.